So today I'm going to talk to you as a part of the Medipsy Psychological Services series on values both in and out of psychotherapy. And the topic we're going to address today is, do personal values have any place in the workspace, in our work lives? We spend a lot of time at work, we hopefully want to enjoy it, and research tells us that if work is a calling, if we feel like it's a really important thing to do, we find it more enjoyable. There's also a study that I'd like to tell you a little bit about how values matter at work. It's a study done in Finland with some young people who are transitioning from school to work from the age of 20 to 23. And what they did is they measured people's values before they started work, and then they followed up with them 3 years later to find out how they were doing. And they found out that people who had a value that a job should be interesting and match my competencies, they found that those people had jobs that were a better fit to their values. Where people had values that salary and promotion, rewards, were very important in work, they found that they had less chance of being unemployed later on. So what we see is that the values we have do play out somewhat in our work, that they are somewhat important. And the take home here is that what we value matters in our work life. So what would we like to have happen in terms of the workplace? Well, the ideal situation is that you'd have a job where your values match the values of your employer. So for example, let's say that you valued making a contribution and you were lucky enough to get hired by Ben & Jerry's ice cream. So Ben & Jerry's has some corporate values that say quality matters, that the people who work for them and who deal with them should have a stake in their business and in the profits that it generates. And they want to use their business as a force for good for their employees and for the world. That's the ideal situation. Your values match the values of your employer. But the more common situation is that you're going out to get a job and you want a job that pays you enough to live decently, that uses the skills you have. And maybe you're not exactly thrilled by what your company does, or you're not terribly fond of the people you work with or the values that it displays in its day-to-day interactions. That's actually quite a common situation. And there are a couple of solutions to this. The first one, and one you actually shouldn't dismiss, is maybe I need to leave a place and find a place that fits the values that are closer to the ones that I have. But that's a hard thing to do. Not an idea, as I say, that should be dismissed, but a difficult thing to do. Let's say that that's not what you want to do, that you decide to stay. So what then do you want to do? Well, there's some steps that you can take to make your values a better match with your workspace. The first thing is clarify what you actually value. Most of us have a very vague sense of what it is that we value. And it's really hard to act on a value if you don't know what it is. If you want some help clarifying your values, Medipsy also has a video called Your Values, Your Life, which would be useful for you to do that. So first, clarify what it is that you value. The next step is for you to actively look for places in your day-to-day where you can live that value. Let's imagine that you value warm relationships and your boss is kind of a cold person who doesn't want to have much to do with interactions with his employees. You can actively look for other situations with colleagues, with people that work for you, to enact this value, to have warm relationships in your workplace. Another thing that you can do is you can advocate. You can try to create change in your workplace. And that might be volunteering for a committee that is elaborating the company values and having an input into it. It might be talking to human resources about a more humane benefits package. It might be setting up an after-work group of like-minded employees who you can talk to and interact with about how you're going to act in the workspace. All of these things are possible ways of allowing your values to become more present in your workspace. So the take-home message from all of this today is your personal values do have a place at work. They are important, but often it will be your own initiatives and your own creativity that make that happen.